So hello everyone, and welcome to the second of our webinars in this new series of IAM webinars. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Ron Young. And just before I hand over to Ron and he takes you through his presentation, I just thought I'd just do a very brief introduction. So Ron is founder of Knowledge Associates International Group of Companies, and he's based in Cambridge in the UK. And he's been involved in a huge amount of work associated with knowledge and innovation, and particularly in the sort of knowledge management and how it might apply in the asset management field and sort of innovation in that field as well. He's really been involved in advising the UK government associated with UK competitiveness in a knowledge-driven economy, and he's provided a number of different knowledge and innovation artifacts to the government to support their work. He's also chaired the British Standards Institution Knowledge Management Standards Committee, and he's involved with the ISO Standards Committee work groups on knowledge management and innovation management and asset management. So you can read all of the rest of Ron's bio in the material we circulated before. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Ron in advance for his presentation. He's going to speak for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to have some questions. So please do add questions to the question tab, and we'll be doing questions at the end. Now I'm going to hand over to Ron. Thank you, Ron.
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction, Ursula. And hello, everybody from Cambridge, UK. And I'd especially like to thank the Institute of Asset Management for inviting me to lead this webinar today. Just a couple of seconds about St John's Innovation Centre. We've been there since 1995. It was established by St John's College, part of Cambridge University, in 1987. And it hosts and supports knowledge and innovation-driven organizations. So it's an innovation hub for smaller organizations, but it also has large international organizations like the British Standards Institution, BSI, which has a team there working with data science and artificial intelligence. My area of research is, as mentioned by Ursula, knowledge asset management, or CAM for short, and the use of AI to enhance effective knowledge working. I'm glad to say that this will actually be the fourth year that I've been invited by the IAM to speak about knowledge asset management. So I believe this is a good indication of a rapidly growing interest in intangibles and knowledge assets. My challenge, my proposal to you today is that it's no longer simply a case of either tangible or intangible asset management, although there's very much good work to be done in each area separately, but it's now a case more of both tangible and intangible asset management working much better together as one, and now strongly enhanced by the power of artificial intelligence. So the title of my talk today is The Two Dimensions of Knowledge Asset Management, Human and AI. And I shall, as speakers said, for about 30 minutes and then an opportunity for some questions. I wish to present three things. First, the need for and a very brief introduction to knowledge asset management. Secondly, I'll talk about the exponentially growing power and impact of AI, especially what's called generative AI, that has taken the world by storm. And thirdly, why I think embarking on a new future of extraordinary asset management that combines human and digital intelligence, it can now combine it in exciting new ways. So let's get started with the need for knowledge asset management. It was actually the late Professor Peter Drucker. He actually said in 1999 about knowledge working, the most important and indeed truly unique contribution of management in the 20th century was a 50-fold increase in the productivity of the manual worker in manufacturing. That's a great achievement. The most important contribution management needs to make in the 21st century is to similarly increase the productivity of knowledge work and the knowledge worker. And some claim today that AI will increase the productivity of knowledge working far more than 50-fold, even several hundredfold. Well, without doubt, we can say that the new currency or the new wealth of the 21st century is to be found in the intangibles, in the effective communication of information, effective team collaboration, accelerated learning, new knowledge creation, sharing, protecting, retention of critical knowledge. And we call these, together with asset management, the Big Six. And for each of the Big Six, there is now an ISO, oh, excuse me, I went back too fast there. For each of that Big Six, there is now an ISO standard with declared principles and requirements to underpin and support this. And also, we must add the importance of quality and risk management standards, of course. You may simply view standards as valuable guidelines, or you may wish to pursue certification. And to help you with the integration of these key areas, we saw the need for a simple framework that helps organizations to assess where they are today on their journey towards integrated knowledge asset management system. The vertical axis shows the scalability from personal to team, organization, inter-organization, and global. And the horizontal axis, which embeds a theory of change, shows how the Big Six can emerge more naturally if the right conditions are in place. Well, if this framework interests you, I can certainly send you a paper that explains in some depth how you can use it for assessment and implementation. And I'll give you my email at the end of the presentation. To describe the theory and methodology of knowledge asset management in some detail, the book published in 2003 by Springer actually documents and disseminates the European-funded collaborative research on knowledge asset management. But very briefly, from that book, in this diagram, you can see that already in 2003, a de facto standard existed that shows how we recognize the more intangible assets, which are shown here in the gray shaded box. They are the human assets, which we define as individual experts, teams, organizations, communities, and knowledge networks. We have the structural assets, which are the more codified intellectual property, infrastructure, and digital assets, and what we call the market assets, which are actually called today the relational or societal assets, all interrelated as intangible assets, but also how any or all of them will convert into financial assets and vice versa. And I'd also like to draw your attention to an important non-ISO standard from the International Accounting Standards Board for Intangible Assets, IAS 38, which sets out the criteria for recognizing and measuring intangible assets. As described by the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, and I quote, "The accounting standard IAS 38 sets out accounting treatment and disclosures to be applied to the recognition and measurement of intangible assets." But what do we really mean by the term knowledge asset management? And why am I proposing to you that the future of knowledge asset management is here today? Will we see major growth in this discipline as it's more fully understood and recognized within the professional asset management community? Well, first of all, the terms knowledge assets, knowledge capital, and knowledge asset management are synonymous with the terms intellectual assets, intellectual capital, intellectual asset management. And many people have told me in my workshops around the world that the analogy I use for electricity is a simple and powerful way to understand how to identify these critical knowledge assets that exist in our organizations. Well, the top three pictures from left to right represents some key tangible assets to be managed for electricity. The creation, the distribution, and the use of electricity through many appliances, large and small. And the bottom three pictures, left to right, represent some key and more intangible assets to be managed for knowledge creation, knowledge distribution, and the application of knowledge. Because electricity in some ways is similar to knowledge in the heads of the people, as it cannot be seen so readily. But we know that asset managers must manage the physical electricity generators to ensure proper electricity generation, of course. Similarly, we know that knowledge managers must manage the knowledge generators or knowledge creators in the organization, which are, of course, at least the individual experts. But we also know that effective collaborative teams co-create and generate new knowledge often faster than any other way. And we know that communities of practice, for example, can transfer and create new knowledge and even become super generators. We know that physical asset managers for electricity must manage the infrastructure of pylons and cables and storage devices for effective electricity distribution. Similarly, we know that information technology infrastructures like organizational computing and information systems and networks, World Wide Web, satellites, Wi-Fi, etc., will support and even amplify the distribution of information to then be able to turn this information rapidly into knowledge and knowledge assets. And we know that asset managers must manage the storage and application of electricity. We know that knowledge managers must do the same to support decision-making, knowledge bases, and intelligent systems. Today, many enlightened organizations have chief knowledge officers and senior people appointed at board level who act as, if you like, critical knowledge architects and knowledge strategists, who are given the same importance as the chief financial officer and the chief information officers. We have cybersecurity experts to manage and protect the information assets. And we have knowledge-driven platforms and processes to turn these information assets into even more valuable knowledge assets. So the discipline of knowledge asset management focuses mainly on knowledge in the organization as a key asset, if not the key asset. Knowledge asset management takes this further by focusing more deeply on the assets that enable the creation, the distribution, the application, the measurement, the valuation, the management, and the reporting of a knowledge asset portfolio for the organization. What is most important about knowledge asset management is that a lot of work has now been done in measuring and reporting the value and performance of knowledge assets. Let me give you a most recent example of this approach to knowledge asset management in the public sector. In April 2021, the UK government published the report Getting Smarter, a strategy for knowledge and innovation assets in the public sector. At the same time, the UK government published the report Draft Guidance on Knowledge Assets in Government. And these reports were actually the result of a 2018 UK government budget report that stated that within the UK public sector, there was a tremendous and highly valuable innovation occurring, but it was not reflected properly, if at all, certainly in any financial balance sheets and valuations. And as importantly, it was not being fully utilized and cross-fertilized across government departments. The report of 2021 sets out an implementation strategy that focuses on overcoming the barriers identified in the Budget 2018 report, and the resultant Rose Book, which is the guidance on knowledge assets in government, was published in December 2021. And although the work originated at HM Treasury, it's moved to the Government Office for Technology Transfer, which is part of the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. And in August, just last month, the Government Office for Technology Transfer also released 2 further publications: Knowledge Asset Management Strategies, What to Do and Where to Start, and Knowledge Asset Senior Responsible Owner, a guide to appointing that role. These are excellent and freely downloadable publications to enable organizations to start to consider their own approaches. So that's a very brief introduction to knowledge asset management, or CAM, and let's now take a brief look at the power of artificial intelligence and how it may significantly enhance our knowledge work. If we consider AI and its relationship to knowledge asset management, then ChatGPT, for example, will say that machine intelligence refers to machines or computer systems that can perform tasks requiring human-like intelligence using AI techniques such as machine learning. Well, that's okay to start the discussion, but what do other leaders say AI is, and what impact will it have on most of us who work with information and knowledge? Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, said very recently that knowledge workers will be the most disrupted. Writers, accountants, architects, software engineers, consultants, teachers. That's what he says. Yuval Harari, he actually says, AI is the first tool that can make decisions by itself. That's interesting. We should be very worried, he says, when AI can make better AI. He says that this may even be the emergence of the first inorganic life forms or inorganic agents. Since he said that, it's strongly rumored that AI will not only be trained and finely tuned by humans, but AI will also train AI itself at incredible speeds and will have the capacity to make decisions by itself. Professor Stephen Hawking said in a similar fashion that the danger is if we allow AI to become self-designing and can improve itself rapidly, and we may lose control. So what about some of our UK politicians? Well, in April 2023, we had our UK Minister for State and Security who said the goal of many is artificial general intelligence, AGI, in which computers teach themselves without the need of humans. He says such robots would transform the planet more than almost any other advancement in human history. And he said that at Cyber UK conference in Belfast, Ireland. For the past few months, I've been trawling through the US government's new AI strategic plan for 2023, the UK National AI Strategy, the European Commission Artificial Intelligence Act, which will be finalized the end of this year and effective in 2027, as I was advised this morning. All of these efforts are concerned with the approaches for regulation and safe foundation models of generative artificial intelligence. And our UK Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, announced in April this year that the initial £100 million fund to help a safe form of artificial intelligence in the UK. All generative AI models, he said, such as ChatGPT, have the potential to create enormous opportunities, grow our economy, create better well-paid jobs, and build a better future. Following that announcement, the UK government are hosting the first AI Safety Summit amongst leading countries, leading AI technology providers, academia and civil society on the 1st and 2nd of November 2023 at Bletchley Park, which was famous for breaking the Enigma code in World War II. Well, these quotations may simply delight or horrify you. We'll come to that later. Generative AI is with us today, big time. And artificial general intelligence is a prediction that some are saying may be achieved in 50 years. Some AI scientists are saying it can be achieved in 10 years. And some are saying even less than 10 years. Well, nobody is certain, but this is quite scary for many. And it has caused a large number of leading AI scientists and practitioners to request a slowdown, at least until we have proper regulation and risk management in place. So what might be the immediate future impact of using AI today in our daily work? Well, the first thing we can say is that AI tools available are impacting and supporting human knowledge working in many ways and to quite a high degree. It's able to read, reason, learn, solve problems, make decisions, store and recall from memory, and even create new knowledge faster in some cases, much faster than humans. I read recently that ChatGPT-4, for example, is rated with an IQ capability of 155, which is against Einstein's 156, as I believe. So in some areas, it's almost considered much smarter than the average human. And many industry technology observers are saying that we should fully embrace the power of AI to raise the bar of knowledge work, productivity. And we should now further develop the unique skills that humans can offer and develop ways for human and digital intelligence to collaborate and create even more extraordinary knowledge working capabilities. In addition to the Big Six standards, which I referred to earlier, there's also published AI standards today that can help. There's the ISO 22989, which is primarily concerned with AI terminology, and that's key. Otherwise, there's a lot of confusion. And there is the ISO DIS 42001. DIS means Draft International Standard today, but you can purchase it still in that stage. And this talks about AI concepts. Most importantly, to help us with ethical principles and standards, the IEEE Standards Association developed the P7000 series in 2021. It was originally called the Ethical Design of Autonomous Intelligent Systems. And now there's a family of standards there. And most interestingly, in recent months, the AI Standards Hub was launched. And you can see it's led by the Alan Turing Institute. It's partnering with the BSI, the National Physical Laboratory, and HM Government. I would suggest that ethical principles, standards, and thought leadership and integrated knowledge platforms are massively transformative. And I would suggest that they are even more powerful when we consider the management of knowledge assets. So let's briefly now take a look at some further key developments in knowledge asset management and how AI might contribute. Critical knowledge asset management is becoming much better understood. Since 2015, with the publication of research papers like the Harvard Business Review paper on managing your mission critical knowledge, that was researched by Wharton Business School at the University of Philadelphia. This was soon followed in 2017 by the Institute of Asset Management, 16-page supplement in the UK Times newspaper, Managing Intangibles and an Internet of Assets. Now, the internet is recognized as a potential global knowledge asset register of value. However, valuable asset ledgers require more than a centralized web and cloud-based repository. They require secure and trusted technologies to support the ideal, which is more distributed, immutable, encrypted ledgers. In other words, trusted asset networks. And that's exactly what the blockchain claims to do. And even here at Knowledge Associates, in our research, we've been experimenting and putting knowledge assets on the blockchain since 2017, supported by trusted certificate providers in Europe, China, and globally. There's still much more work to do, but we're rapidly moving towards the ideal, which is to embrace the notion of technology infrastructures for distributed asset ledgers, tangible and intangible. If you'd like to know more about some of the latest thought leadership with intellectual capital and digital assets in the digital economy, I'd propose this book, edited by Patricia Ordonez de Pablo and Leif Edvinsson, who's the grandfather of intellectual capital management. And I'm glad to say that I have a chapter in this book entitled Towards Knowledge Asset Management. And naturally, I'm very delighted to see that the Institute of Asset Management released its updated 2021 revision for developing and maintaining a strategic asset management plan. Now, and for the future, we could, for example, consider the capabilities of embedding AI learning models into such publications. And I suggest that this could produce even deeper knowledge and insights into strategic asset management. And we must continually remind ourselves, of course, that effective knowledge asset management will not only enable our organizations to improve their productivity, but knowledge asset management underpinned by international standards and AI, the power of AI, applied nationally, regionally, and globally, could certainly make one of the most significant contributions to solving our existential crises for planetary health and climate action, world health and pandemics, extreme poverty, work, and also to provide quality education for all. The UN Sustainable Development Goal 17 recognizes the need for collaborative partnerships for achieving the goals. There's still much good work to be done, and all of this will only be good, in my opinion, as our ability to create and apply knowledge assets in the best possible way. It always has been, and I believe it always will be. So I started with a quotation from Drucker, and I'm going to end with a quotation from Drucker, from his book in 1993, Post-Capitalist Society, which many of us now refer to as the knowledge-driven society. He said at that time, every few hundred years in Western history, there occurs a sharp transformation. Within a few short decades, society rearranges itself, its worldview, its basic values, its social and political structure, its arts, its key institutions. 50 years later, there's a new world, and the people born then cannot even imagine the world in which their grandparents lived and into which their own parents were born. We're currently living through such a transformation, he said. I suggest that without doubt, we are in the knowledge transformation of society, and that those organizations that manage their knowledge assets wisely will lead the 21st century. The quality of our knowledge is the basis of our decision making. The management of our knowledge assets is the basis of our knowledge-driven actions and implementations. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's not simply a case of tangible or intangible asset management. Although there's much good work to be done in each area separately, it is now the time for both tangible asset management and intangible asset management to be treated far more as one. And I'm convinced that AI-driven methods and tools will provide us with an even better way to create, manage, and apply our knowledge assets faster and at a higher quality. So if you're interested in these books, in the papers, in the reference I have made, please contact the IAM or myself directly, and I'll give you that information and continue the conversation. Hope I've given you some new ideas, maybe even some new insights, but I'm conscious of time now, so I will stop there and hand back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Go.
So anyone who wants to ask a question, please do. We've already had one question asked, but please do pop some questions into chat and into the questions tab, and I will absolutely make sure that I raise those questions up to Ron. So Ron, the first question is an area where I think it's a big area for asset management, but I think there's no less how important it is for the whole AI area. So it's around social justice. So he said, is it worth considering the existing issues with AI right now, especially in the area of social justice? If we do not implement AI well in asset management, we will repeat the coded in it's got racism and blinkered responses of others. In other words, you've got a situation whereby if I think the questions are all around the whole, you end up with bias and other things in AI because of the information that it's fed in and effectively the training that it's had. If I haven't represented that question faithfully, Matthew, please do let me know. But Ron, I'll hand over to you, because I mean, social justice is a massive area for asset management, you know, and an increasing area, I would say.
It's an excellent question, and it's a big question. And, you know, just this morning, before this webinar, I was attending a BSI-sponsored event in Cambridge. And the big question there was also around this. And, you know, I would say, and many are saying, is the genie out of the bottle now already? We talk about regulation, we talk about social justice, we talk about, on the one hand, innovation, but regulation is going to stifle innovation. It's getting the balance right, of course. We all need to take the right risks, and goodness knows not. But I think my view is that AI is with us today. Even what we've got today and the tools we've got today can have a big impact. So I don't think we should just stop and wait. I mean, I mentioned very briefly the European Union AI Act, which will be finished this year, is not going to actually be in effect, I've been told, until 2027. Well, a lot can happen in AI in that time, you know. So in principle, I'm totally for ensuring that we take the right risk. We only move forward when we feel that we are managing the risks correctly. But I fear that, well, my response would be that the genie is out of the bottle and we've got to do something now, regardless, until we get that right regulation. And the legal position is going to take time as well. That's how I see it. AI is, fortunately or unfortunately, moving much, much faster than we can actually adapt.
Thank you. And have you seen any, just dig into this a bit more, have you seen anything, Ron, on sort of bias? And because I've seen quite a bit of stuff about people feeling that maybe some of the answers you get from some of the AI does incorporate some of that bias, and have you seen anything where people are trying to effectively deal with potential bias in training and the like in some of these AI tools?
Yes. You know, there's bias amongst human beings as well, of course.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We clearly want to minimize. There's a guy which his name is Mo Gaudat. He's written a book called Scary Smarts, and he said that the bias is there because the bias is in the human beings. What's on the internet is a reflection of humanity. The way to move forward with that is we have to treat this AI as incredibly intelligent young children. It is our responsibility, according to him, to actually make sure that we develop the right values and we align AI with the human values that we're seeking. That will take time, but he believes that's the only way to do it. I think in addition to that, the AI technology companies themselves are doing a lot of work right now, whether it's Google or Microsoft or OpenAI or whoever. They have developed themselves their own AI principles and how they are planning to address the issue of bias and interference as well. Interference, it's a difficult issue, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Ron. I think Matthew did confirm that I had interpreted his question correctly, so that's good. So the next question is from Eric Pradeep, and he said, could you please speak a bit more to the distributed and trusted asset ledgers and how it will be applicable to asset management within the energy and transportation industries?
Oh, right. Well, let me see. I think there's two things there. First of all, the idea behind blockchain is so that we can have more decentralized, secure, immutable records, whatever they are, whether they are, and assets are a key part. They could be physical assets, houses, paintings, anything we want. We could put that onto the blockchain, and its potential is that it will be a trusted network. We can trust it far more because of the fact that it's immutable and it's encrypted, and we cannot tamper with it, in other words. Specific industries, I'm not probably the best person to answer this, other than generally I could see if the idea of having an asset ledger, whether it contains knowledge assets or physical assets or both, the idea of having an asset ledger which is secure on the blockchain, I think is worth pursuing far more. And people are doing that, but I can't be too specific of it. I think it was transport was one of them that was asked, wasn't it? I think as a general principle, I would say asset ledgers can be applied anywhere that are on the blockchain, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. The next point is a comment, and I think it's been dealt with in the chat, but I'll just make sure everyone understands that. So some of the attendees had some issues getting into the system because their IT was blocking the link. But I can assure you that it's been fully recorded and it will be available. So once we've finished the session today, there's usually a few days for us to download. We just do a bit of tidying up of the recording, and then we'll make it available, and we'll definitely let the individuals who are having problems know about that, but we also make sure that we issue that on LinkedIn as well, so any people who've missed the session or want to rewatch the session can do so. So hopefully that answers your question, Nofaldi. Now, the next question comes from Gregory Hottinger, and how do you deal with management concerns over AI being a black box and not understanding how it works? It's an issue with engineers that want to know the process and how it works.
Yes, another great question, because I think that's the key issue right now. Management want to know a bit more. They want to know enough. They don't want to know all the technical details of how AI works, but they want to know what it means to their business. They want to know broadly, why are we so excited about this and whatnot. And the answer to that, of course, has to be education. Senior management briefings, I think, right now, senior management briefings, just telling them and giving them the opportunity to make their concerns known, but particularly so that they go away with enough to know that it's not a black box, that this actually, they understand why it's come about and what it is, and they're starting to see how it might benefit their organization and what they need to be thinking about next, at least looking. So it's education, I'm afraid, I would say.
Thank you, Ron. Has anyone's got any additional questions? Please do put them in chat. Okay, there's another one. There's another one popped up here. So in terms of self-learning AI, is your view that the machines will eventually take over? Is this a humanity threat if we're not very careful? So that's from Nuafaldi, you're from National Grid, so thank you for that.
Right. That's the question, isn't it? What do we mean? Self-learning AI means that the AI itself doesn't need. When I first got involved in AI, I was actually doing a part-time master's at Essex Universities in the 1980s. And there we didn't have the benefit of the power of the computing that we have today for neural networks, but we were working on something called expert systems, where we put the human knowledge into the system and did some really good work with medical diagnostics and things like that. But it was based on humans, whereas the big difference today with generative is it starts off with no human intervention, and you throw a lot of big data at it, you throw the internet at it, and it learns from the beginning how to actually, it learns itself, it understands language, so it can learn. And not only can it learn, but it can improve itself. If anyone's really interested in that aspect, the self-learning side and what threat it might pose or not, I would point people to the movie on YouTube. It's called AlphaGo, the movie, where Google DeepMind was playing the lead Go champion in the world, and how it started in the morning and it was learning itself. And then this time the AI would play not humans to get better, but it would play itself millions of times faster than humans could do for a long time. And that's quite frightening, really, that the AI can learn so fast itself. I think that the answer, this is just my personal opinion, is to the degree that we actually can align AI with human values, to the degree that we can teach AI, I want to see the regulation, of course, but it will take time. And I'm not quite sure how we can manage it. I've heard somebody say we should have a UN agency for AI, like we have the UN agency for the Atomic Energy Authority, where they have a team of inspectors that will go out and physically examine whether nuclear energy is being used for safe purposes. But I can't see how we do that with AI, frankly. But clearly, it's right that we've identified the potential threat. But I'm a positivist. I believe that humanity will overcome that. I can't answer the question now, but I believe it will, and I believe it's right that we should be concerned and we should be acting on this now. That's why I'm very happy to see the UK government leading the AI Safety Conference in the beginning of November.
Thank you, Ron. Has anyone got any further questions that they wanted to raise to Ron? No, it doesn't look like it. Ron, I wanted to say a massive thank you on behalf of the Institute of Asset Management for coming along and presenting your webinar, but also for handling the questions. There's some really interesting and really difficult questions, which at the moment we don't necessarily know the answers to, but they nevertheless pose some really challenging areas for yourselves and your colleagues and all of us as we sort of step forward in this new world. So thank you very much for joining. I really appreciate it. Thank you on behalf of all the attendees. I want to thank all the attendees for coming as well. We really appreciate you coming along. As I said before, we have recorded the session. It will be available. We'll just do a little bit of, we'll just trim off some of my people waiting to join messages, and we'll get that available to everyone, so you'll be able to rewatch, and also some of your colleagues will be able to see it as well if they're IAM members. So thank you, Ron. Thank you, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you again on our next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.